Good morning, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and prop preview for round 4 of the AMEX. Going to get you guys ready for all your exposure today. With first off, a look at the weather report, some of the stat averages from the stadium course, and then what I'm doing on Underdog and Prize Picks to go after some prop value here for Sunday. We'll go through any 3 balls, any questions or bets you want to deep dive down there and chat. I see we already got Benny Honda down there. Welcome on in. Good morning. Got my coffee over here. Also Tracy down there as well. If you have a specific question about Will Zalatoris, I will 100% go over it for you, but not sure what you want, Tracy. So go ahead and just give me a little bit of extra on top of that. Let's go ahead and get this thing started with a look at the conditions out here for Sunday, which if you take a look at this forecast down here at the bottom, it looks pretty calm once again. Now, I want to bring up all 5 models just for completion. But what you'll see on here is that every single model is calling for sub 6 miles an hour sustained winds. The highest being over here on the GFS model, which has it getting closer to 5, 6 in the afternoon. But the rest of these models, all 6 of them, are calling for pretty much pristine conditions, which might make you think that the scoring average would get easier than what you had for yesterday, but the Sunday pin locations are going to have a massive impact on play. So we're going to go through these here in just a minute, hole by hole, but they are much more tucked than what you had for rounds 1 through 3. So though the scoring average was a little bit better out there yesterday, I think it's going to come down to earth a little bit. Something around maybe a half a stroke under par is what I'm projecting for because of some of those harder locations. The birdie average will probably stay about the same, maybe go slightly down to like 3.8 per round. Your bogey average will probably go up just a little bit with those harder pin locations. Your fairway green averages, which by the way, we can't even bet on this week. We don't even have them posted on Prize Picks. Those probably won't change all that much, but even if you can't bet on them, I like to throw those down there for some reference to get an idea for how this golf course is playing. But now let's go through these pins, give you guys an idea of exactly why I think it's going to play harder, because these pin locations in general are much more difficult. So first and foremost, one is over here to the left side, which seems a little bit easier because it's not tucked in the back right. But what you have to realize is that all the slope on this green is taking you from the left to the right side of the green. So to get to this middle, like back left pin location, it's a kind of an awkward one down that little valley that you see right there. It's really hard to get close to it. The only way to do so is to take direct aim at the pin. And if you miss left, there's going to leave you a tricky up and down. And if you hit it at the center of the green, you're going to end up near that round 1 through 3 pin location. So I would say that hole number 1, it's not that much more difficult than what you had for days 1 through 3. It was already a pretty difficult pin location, but I would say just a hair more tricky than what you had for Thursday. If we go to the second hole over here, so the second one is towards the middle right. It's a little bit further into the green. You do have a little bit of a backstop that you can use, maybe even a side stop out there on either side, but being a little bit deeper into this green is going to require a slightly longer approach, and you had that same kind of effect going on for rounds 1 through 3. So I would say that this pin location is pretty neutral. I wouldn't say that it's harder or easier than what you had out there for the first few days, but yeah, about average, I'd say. Not that much, not that big of a difference. If you go to hole number 3, 3 is in the back left. This is one of those pin locations that is exponentially harder than what you had. So it's way back here in the back left. You do have a little bit of slope behind you to help you out, but it's a longer shot. You've got to carry this bunker. It also brings that left miss into play where all the slopes are over there to the left side. Just not a healthy place to go out there and miss with your golf ball. Hole 4 is in this middle left side, so this is going to be an easier pin location than what you had for days 1 through 3, which is kind of rare on this Sunday setup, but it's a little bit shorter. It's less protected than that right little cove. So I would say that this is one of the ones that's maybe slightly easier. Hole number 5 is way, way harder. This is the first par 5, and it's tucked way over here on the back right edge. So you've got to carry all the water if you're going to go for it in 2. But this was the pin location that Xander Schauffele made an albatross on. So it's not completely impossible, but it is way more difficult than having this front pin location where it's easier to get up and down. Hole number 6 is also really difficult. This one really brings the water into play. It's over here tucked on this front little ledge close to the right side where, you know, days 1 through 3, you had plenty of room to hit the ball close. Look how much the ball was releasing because you're hitting a 200+ yard approach shot. It's going to play shorter, but you're still hitting like 190 to 200 yards in, which means even if you land it near this pin location, it's going to be at the middle of the green at the very best. If not, if you miss short or miss out there to the right side, you're looking at double or worse out there at hole 6. Hole 7 is another one of these tougher pin locations. This one is much further back into the green. So it's back here in this back little cove. You do have some slope that'll help you out there to the right side. So if you're a draw player, maybe you draw a wedge off of that slope and hit it closer to that pin location. But you have to execute a perfect shot to take advantage of that. It brings this left miss into play. You can see that little drop off over there to the left side of the green. You also have these pot bunkers out there to the right, where if you end up hitting it a little bit long and you're trying to use that slope there to the right side, it can leave an extremely difficult up and down. So you can kind of see here where it's just much more risky than what you've had for the first few days. Hole 8's another example. This one's a par 5, but it's a little bit further back into this green, a little bit harder to access than what you had for days 1 through 3. And if you're going to miss short right over here, let's say you don't hit a great tee shot at hole number 8, you're going to have a really long up and down to go out there and make a birdie. Hole number 9 is tucked over here on the middle right side of the screen. So it's also getting close over there to the water. If you miss short right, is at least in play. And it's also the hardest part of the screen. You can see there in the back, you had a little bit of room with all that release people were getting on their iron shots. But over here to the front right side of the green, you're not going to have nearly as much room, which is kind of what you need on a 460-yard hole. It's not 500 yards like we have for some of these par 4s on the PGA Tour, but with the firm greens, you're not going to stop a wedge very close there. Hole number 10, so if you're starting on the back, they will have hole 1 and 10 start for today. Hole 10 is way harder than what you had for days 1 through 3. Hole 10 is tucked over there in the back left on a little bit of a shelf, and also just a much more protected shot. You've got that bunker to the left side. The long miss isn't any good either, as opposed to this pin location for days 1 through 3, which was pretty much just there in the wide open for you. It was a little bit further back, but it was definitely wide open compared to what you have tomorrow. 11's over here in the middle right side of the screen. I would say that it's about the same kind of pin location as days 1 through 3, if not a hair easier. And the reason I say a hair easier is that it's not close to the water over there. No one was really reaching the screen in 2 anyways. So most people are either going to be hitting from green side. You can see Hoffman actually was one of the players that got it the furthest up there yesterday of anyone in the field, which is kind of surprising for Chuck Hoffman, right? He's not a bomber by any means, but he was able to get it green side and was not able to get it up and down. Now that it's a little bit closer to that right side, if they happen to get it up their green side, I think they're going to have a better chance at making a birdie. Hole number 12 is a front left pin location. So it is a wedge into this hole, but it does bring this nasty little trench bunker into play. If you miss short, you can see all the slope is taking you down into there. And it's a solid, 10-yard drop down into that bunker. Not as severe as what you have with the number 16 at this golf course. But if you miss short sided in this deep bunker to this front pin location, you're looking at bogey at best, most likely, unless you just hit a miraculous sand shot. 13 is here in the back left corner. Enough said, right? This is already a very difficult hole to begin with. And now you're going to put it in the back corner right next to the water. And you could use the slope to the right to get the ball a little bit closer. But if you don't do so, you're going to have 20, 25 feet at the very best. The one thing I'll say about this hole is that there's a chance that they move up the tee box. Now, there's only a chance, right? We have no idea what's going to happen until we see it over there on the shot tracker. But with this kind of pin location, I don't want to say that like they usually move up the tee box, but when you put one that's this brutal, look at 13 over here, guys. It's tucked 6 off the left, 34 paces on. There's a good chance that they're going to move that up. Even if they do, it'll be a difficult hole, but not as hard, right? If they're playing it from the tips. 14 is over here in the back right corner. This is a very similar pin location to rounds 1 through 3. In fact, it's only like 4 or 5 paces off. So that one's not going to change very much at all. 15 is a front right pin location. So this is a long par 4. I would say that this one's going to play a little bit easier. Though you liked having the room to get it closer to 15 there in the back, it's going to play shorter, which means you have a shorter club in. So rather than 480 yards back there, it's probably closer to 450 yards up here towards the front, which is the difference between hitting something like a 7-iron into the green and perhaps even like an 8-7 iron, maybe like an 8-9 iron into that kind of green. 16 is the par 5. This is going to be an easy pin location for this hole. Obviously, the trench bunker down the left is the big no-go here at hole number 16. But because this one's a little bit more reachable than what you had there with hole 11, more people were getting it close to hole 16 and 2. This front pin location is a lot easier to get up and down on. When you had it back there in the back right, it was a much longer pitch shot, which people were hitting to like 10, 15 feet. Still decent birdie right here around hole 16 for days 1 through 3. But those 10 to 15 footers are a whole lot harder than probably those 68 footers that they're going to have on that front pin location. So the par fives, I will say they're going to give them some birdies today with the par fives. Not give that to them, but they're going to have easier chances at it. The hard ones are the par threes and the par fours because there's a lot of bogeys coming. Speaking of bogeys, guys, 17 Alcatraz is absolutely diabolical. They have it in the back left back here, and you can see that there's some slope just behind this pin location that'll take you down there into the rocks. With the back pin location, it brings a lot more left to right dispersion into play. If you're going pin hunting, let's say you're down a few strokes with a few holes left, then you're going to be bringing in that long miss into play as well. If you land it just a little bit too far, this pin location is exponentially more difficult than what you had over here for rounds 1 through 3. Not only was it shorter, less protected over here on this side, but they gave you enough room in front of it to hit it close. And I just don't think you're going to see that over there for round 4. And then the last pin location's over here in the back right corner. This one I would say is pretty similar pin location to days 1 through 3. It's not as close to the water, so maybe less blow-up holes like doubles and triples that you'll see at 18, but it's a really difficult pin location with the slope. You've got a lot of slope around it, not really a lot of slope that's going to help you hit it closer, but slope that's going to make putting more difficult and also some of those around the green shots. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, because it's over there in the back right, one second here, guys. I'm still sick, so I'm glad it took this long before I had to cough my. But what you'll see is if you miss over here to the short right, I mean, this bunker shot to the back right would be extremely difficult. And heck, even if you missed like pin high over here to the right side, the angle from over here in this little chipping area is a lot harder to the round 4 pin location to the right side than what you had with all this room over towards the water. So I think you'll see less like blow-ups at hole number 18, just because you won't have as many water balls. But I think you might see just as many, if not more, bogeys because of the around the green shots being a little bit more difficult there. So that's it for the pin locations in general, guys. If we're talking about the scoring averages, I think it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Right, going through this pin locations last night, it was pretty obvious to me that I think the birdie average, it might stay the same. It might actually even go up slightly to like 3.95 per round, but this bogey average is going to be where a lot of the change comes. I think it's going to be around like 2.85 to 3 per round, which is going to significantly impact the scoring. So we'll talk about the implications of that over here on Underdog and Prize Picks, but let me catch up on chat, see if there's any specific questions that you guys have. Ernie Blue, what's going on? Over under for Lauer 71.5 and Straka 70.5. Sepp, I've got to say, as the leader, I'm a little bit worried about what he's got to do. But if you take a look at the sportsbook odds, Ernie, I'll just show you that. He's juiced like minus 150 towards the over. So if you're a big believer in the plus EV value that you find for some of these props, then Sepp Straka would be an over that you're probably looking at. Now, the added caveat that I'll give is that I think there's much better players that you can fade at 70.5. So we'll talk about those here in a minute. So I'd rather take some of the lower tier players and fade them at that sort of number. But we'll talk about that here in a second. And who was the other one? You said Justin Lauer at 71.5. At 71.5, I think he's a more realistic under that you could take. I wish we had the sportsbook line odds. It looks like they just ripped them off the board for whatever reason. Let's see if they have them up over here on Fanduel then. So they do. So Justin Lauer is at, what do they have? Every possible combination on here. So yeah, it doesn't look like they have the odds posted for some reason. Maybe they're just tuning into the live stream and figuring out that these pin locations are going to be pretty difficult. Looks like Draftkings just got theirs back up there. But yeah, Justin Lauer here is minus 150 towards the under. So that's what I was trying to look at there. So the Sepp Straka one, I'm a little hesitant on just because I think he might win the golf tournament. But this Justin Lauer prop over here for the under minus 150 might not be the worst idea there. So yeah, if you're a plus EV value, that's what I would do. Thoughts on the underdog props? Grazeman for top 5 finish. Let's take a look at it. So let's go over here to the underdog side. Look at Grazeman. I have no idea what the multiplier is on a Max Grazeman. So they've got him at 10.5 finishing position and slightly over. So they don't have the top 5 finish on there, Jeremy. You'll have to tell me what the actual payout is because I'm not able to look at it myself. But if we take a look at the sportsbook odds, that'll give us a good idea for like what a fair line would be on that sort of player. So if we're looking at the top 5 odds for Max Grazeman, let's see. So he's the one slightly below it. So he's plus 240 here out there for that line. I mean, if you're going to take him for a top 5, you need a sizable multiplier to go out there and take it, right? So if I was going to play that kind of prop, I would probably want 2x multiplier out there, an underdog, to go out there and take it. And I could just tell you from experience that they usually don't give you the best odds over there in underdog. So yeah, I probably wouldn't bet that, man. Like if I was going to, I'd just do it on a hard rock bet, that kind of thing. You're looking at Hall under 71. You're looking at the Grazerman top 5. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what the odds are on that. But yeah, let's look at the Hughes birdies 4. The 4 birdie lines, I think, are pretty fair. I mean, I'll just tell you that right off the bat. I think the average is going to be 3.9 per round. So Mackenzie Hughes uses an average birdie maker. I think there's no edge there at a 4 birdie line. I think that's about as appropriate as you could possibly get out there for a line. So really no lean in either direction there. And then the Hall under 71, I think the scoring average is going to be like 0.5 under par. Hall gains on average about 0.5 strokes to the field. So I wouldn't say that there's really a big edge on either of those props in either direction. If I was going to give you like the plus EV lean out there, let's see if they have a Harry Hall line posted. And they don't have anything posted for Harry Hall. I mean, I guess I would lean under maybe with the push equity that you have there at 71. I think that's always nice to have in your back pocket. But I think both those lines, same thing with the Hughes line too. At 4 birdies, like there's a lot of push equity at that sort of number. But I just don't know if there's a bunch of value in either direction. And yeah, you'll have to let me know, man, what the multiplier is on the Grazerman prop, right? If you want me to evaluate a prop, bro, I got to know what I'm betting on in the payout. So go ahead, let me know that, and I'll let you know, dude. If not, there's nothing I can do for you. Let's go through some of these underdog props. So what I wanted to go through is some of the pieces of exposure I've already entered. And with those tougher pin locations, it was pretty much a no-brainer for me. So Charlie Hoffman is up at 71 strokes over on Prize Picks. On sites like Draftkings, he's at 71.5 strokes. Juiced a little bit under, like you can see there with the minus 150 odds. But we're getting him a whole stroke and a half lower here on the underdog side. And given that he's got the Sunday pressure of being up there towards the lead, he'd have to shoot -3 to go under a 70 stroke line, is why I went out there and mixed this in. The other side of it, I took this over on Harry Higgs, who, by the way, Harry Higgs, I love him to death. He's one of the most entertaining players that we have out there. But for lack of a better word, he's not that good at golf, right? He's about an average player in this sort of field. I love playing him in Showdown just to root for my guy, Harry. But to say that he's an above average player would be lying to yourself. He's not, right? There's a reason why he doesn't have full-time tour status anymore. He had to earn back the opportunity to play via the Korn Ferry Tour last year, which he had a very good year on the Korn Ferry Tour. Tip of the cap to him. Love to see him back out here in the PGA Tour. But now we're pricing him alongside like legit PGA Tour players. Like, what the hell are we doing? They've got him at the same number as a Sepp, who, by the way, Sepp, just to show you this, was minus 150 over there at that number. So he was already a plus EV value out there towards the over. Harry Higgs is a way worse player than Sepp. You compare him to a Chris Kirk. He's a way worse player than Chris Kirk. You're talking about Kirk, who's a multiple-time tour winner, compared to Harry Higgs, who just got his tour card back. I mean, even compared to a Poston, a Bo Hostler, give me all those players over a Harry Higgs. And when you take a look at some of the sportsbook odds here, you'll see that some of those better players, even like a Mark Hubbard, I think is a better player than what you have there, is minus 145 for the over. Daniel Berger, objectively, a better player than Harry Higgs. You cannot tell me otherwise. You're full of shit if you think that he's a better player. He's minus 135 for the over at that sort of number. I just don't get it. And he's at the same number on both sites. So if you're going to take that over on Harry Higgs, you can also take it over there on the Prize Pick side. The reason why I decided to take this over on Underdog was the fact that we got the Seagull down there at 70 strokes. He is an entire stroke higher over there on Prize Picks, and the payout's better. It's 2.75x if you take it over here on the Underdog side, as opposed to if you took 2 fades on the Prize Pick side, it's only 2.5x. So that's kind of the reasoning behind those 2 props. Now on Prize Picks, I haven't entered anything quite yet, but that's why we're here in the live stream. So let's go ahead, do some deep diving over there on that side, and try and find a slip to add over there. It's not like I think that you have to only enter fades, by the way. Like, this is just the first slip that I ended up going with because I thought that there was quite a bit of value on these 2 spots. And by the way, if you're going to enter 2 fades together, Underdog is the place to do it out there with those payouts. Like Prize Picks 2.5x, just no thank you. Favorite guys to move into the top 20? Oh, I don't really have any off the top of my head, Tim, to be quite frank with you. So that's a tough question, and I don't have anything for you. You'll have to give me some maybe ideas out there for the top 20, and I'll give you a few that are my favorites. But that's not something that I spend my time thinking about, right? Like, oh, who do I think is going to crack the top 20? I could give a fuck who finishes top 20 at this event, right? It means nothing for DFS. It means nothing for Showdown, really. So, yeah, if you want a few players to throw by me, I got you. But I don't know if anyone's thinking about who's cracking the top 20. I think that's a pretty silly question. Let's go through a few of these props on here. So what I wanted to look at over here on the prize pick side was potentially some positive stance plays. So they have these elite tier guys at like 69.5 on both books. And what you'll see here with the JT is that he's minus 135 under. Patrick Cantlay is actually down at 69.5 strokes. He's just a little bit over, so he would be maybe the one that you wouldn't want to take there. But it's Justin Thomas at 69.5 strokes. Didn't have the best round 3 performance. Actually lost strokes on approach around the stadium course, but he would normally be the kind of player I'd be looking at that number. So, you know, maybe we'll throw him in the back of our mind as a potential play that we look at later. But these guys at 70.5, like a Jason Day was kind of standing out to me. I know he's about even money on the sports books, though. The reason why I say it was kind of standing out is because he had a really good round 3 when it came to his approach play. He's been very consistent the entire week when it's come to his play around this event. So they're at about even money. It's not a plus EV lean out there towards the under, but I would argue that there's no way, and I think this is the best way to look at the Harry Higgs line. There's no way in hell that Jason Day should be at the same line as Harry Higgs. It makes no fucking sense. And excuse my French there, but it makes no sense. Like whoever made that line on Harry Higgs is higher on drugs or something. There's just no way to put that there. Or they're his family members that, you know, want to go out there and make him feel good heading into Sunday. There's just no other explanation there other than the fact that the guy is completely brainwashed to put that line up. Let's go through a few other lines on here though. So this Matt Kuchar line was at 71.5 last night, and I was looking at it for an under at that number. I didn't end up taking it, and it did bump down to 71, which is a little bit unfortunate. But there were a few positive stance plays that I was looking at. Like I told you about the J-Day one, told you about the Justin Thomas one as well. If we go over here to the birdie or better board, and I wish we had things like greens to bet on, also fairways. We do have the shot tracker for round 4, so a little bit disappointing that we don't have those to choose from. But if we're going to look at the birdie board, it's usually a good idea to take a look at the Caesars lines. I believe we have them posted on Fanduel as well. So yeah, nothing on Fanduel actually over there from the birdie perspective. But if you go over here to Caesars, you'll see that JT is at 5.5 birdies. They've got a bunch of guys at 4.5. Some of them juiced towards the under, but you have some of those guys at 4 birdies over there on that site. Patrick Cantlay is minus 150 for his over at 4.5 birdies. So he's at 5 over here on the prize pick side. But if you're going to take an over on birdies, you do have Cantlay over there on Underdog that is there at 4.5 birdies. So I know we've been focusing on maybe some fades to this point, but a minus 150 over at 4.5 birdies, like that doesn't feel like a terrible spot to mix in. So let's go ahead and at least throw it in the shopping cart over there on Underdog. Sam Burns was minus 145 for his over on birdies, but he was bumped from 4.5 to a 0.92x multiplier. So maybe we stay away from that one. We'll keep Cantlay in the shopping cart over here in Underdog. If we're going to find a pairing over here, look at that. Jason Day's at 69.5 strokes. Let's see if we can find anyone that was bumped down for strokes on Underdog. Let me get a sip of this coffee, by the way. I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm sweating my ass off over here. Being sick is not a great thing. This sweatshirt's not helping either, though. Oh, and I almost dropped my coffee on live stream. That would have been a good way to wake up. Of course, Jeremy, the multiplier is 1.75x. Gotcha. So the whole payout is 5.93x, like you're saying. Cool. So that gives me a much better idea of what we're doing there. So you're getting almost like a double payout by taking that prop, which is kind of nice. That's what I was looking for, right? I was telling you I wanted about a 2x multiplier to go out there and play it. It's a little bit less than that, so it's not ideal. But if you don't have access to a site like Hard Rock Bet, you don't have access to some of those other sports books, it's maybe not the worst idea to go out there and mix in. So yeah, I think the Harry Hall under at 71, there's some push equity there. I don't think that's the worst play by any means. The other side of it, though, is where it gets a little bit hairy, but yeah, I don't think it's terrible. How do we feel for Cam Davis birdies? You're sure that he'll have a hole that he doubles? Yep, but he should get there on birdies. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? That's kind of how Cam Davis plays. So over here on the prize pick side, does he have a line? So I don't see one over here on prize picks. Let's see if they have one over here in Underdog. I'm assuming they do if you're asking about it. So I don't see any lines posted either on either of these two sites, but that's kind of his skill set. So yeah, if you're talking about just in general with Cam Davis and how he plays for Sunday, he's extremely aggressive. He goes after pin locations. He's also a really good putter. He's not the most consistent iron player, so that's why he'll make a lot of those mistakes. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Thoughts on Mitchell at 71 or Willie Z at 70.5? So Willie Z 70.5 was somebody I was looking at for an under. So it was kind of like the Justin Thomas prop I was talking about before. He's minus 135 for the under. So he has the same kind of odds like JT had for the under. And like a Jason Day, actually, Will Zalatoris gained a bunch of strokes on approach. So if we were going to look for some unders on strokes, I kind of like the idea of a Will Zalatoris, but he's at 70 over there. What is he on Underdog? Is he 70.5? At least I hope he is. If not, that kind of stinks. So he is 70.5 over here on the Underdog side. Like maybe this is a two-leg slip that we end up adding over here on this side of things, because we got the minus 150 odds on Cantlay, the minus 135 over there on Zalatoris. Really the only thing keeping me from entering this sort of slip would be that the payout's a little bit lower than I'd hoped for. The correlation lowers it, but also having a birdie line further lowers the payout over here on Underdog. So I don't know. We'll think about it. Maybe if I can find a fade to go out there and mix in and boost the payout a little bit, we can enter those two props. But yeah, I think that's a sharp take, dude, especially the Will Zalatoris one. The Mitchell one at 71, it's kind of like Harry Hall at 71. They're both slightly above average players, but that's where you'd put them for their projection, right? If you think the scoring average is going to be 71.5 like I do, and they're a slightly above average player, it's not exact science. I'd have to run my projections, but that's right about a 71 projection right there on those two players. So I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of line value there. So yeah, maybe stick to the Willie Z one. Underdog has the top 20 finishing position for Hughes at 1.67x. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those props, man, because 99.99% of the time, you go to Hard Rock Bet, you go to one of those other sites, and you can bet them at like plus 200 to plus 300, which is like betting a 3x slip for just one prop that you're entering. So I would be a little bit cautious about those, dude. I don't think that they're ever the best props. Like they make mistakes every once in a while. Once in a blue moon, if you go through those, you'll find one that's maybe a little bit better value than what you'll see on the sports books. But they're very rare, man. It's not something you see very often. And I can tell you with the Mark Hubbard prop here, like he's 0.86x out there for the worst. Like they've accounted for this stuff, right? It's not like they're going out there and randomly assigning these multipliers. They're assigning them to have slightly less value than the sports books. That's kind of their idea out there with those props. Let's look at the Hughes one though. So I know you said he was 1.6x already, but let's see what he is over there on the sports books. So if we look at the top 20 on Mackenzie Hughes, this is probably the one out of the two that might have some value. Let's see. So the top 20 lines are right here. And Mackenzie Hughes is plus 210. So yeah, no, same thing, right? Like you're getting a decent payout boost, but it should be bigger than that you're actually getting. So I'd probably stay away from it. Also, and yeah, that same thing with the Hubbard one. I just think the multipliers kind of ruin it, man. They're screwing you on the payouts. They know what they're doing. That's for sure. Let's find a prize pick slip to enter. So you already have these two over there in Underdog. If you want a second slip to go out there and play, you can obviously use your own discretion. You like either of these two props, go ahead, mix them in yourself. But over here on the prize pick side, I do want to figure out something to enter. And I do agree with their pricing over here a little bit more. They're less bump sensitive. So the reason why some of this value has opened up over here in Underdog is they bump things like crazy. Like they just go bump happy over there on the Underdog side. Like for example, JT just got taken off the board. Let's see what they move Justin Thomas to. So they haven't reposted him quite yet. If they move him to 69 strokes, like I'll fade him at 69 strokes. If he has to shoot -4 on a course that's playing 0.5 under, and he has to gain 3.5 strokes to go out there and go under, like that's something I'll fade for Justin Thomas, especially when he wasn't hitting the ball well yesterday. And just to show you guys what I'm talking about, I'm going to bring up Bet the Number and some of the current stats that we have for this week. Justin Thomas in round 3 was utter dog shit. He gained 3 strokes putting. That's the only reason he posted a half decent score. But if we take a look at his round 3 performance, everything but the putter was pretty shitty. You can see he gained around the green, gained with the putter, the 2 short game categories, but off the tee was about a neutral and he lost 1.5 strokes around the green. I mean, on approach, I should say. So if they're going to repost him and they bumped him down to 69 strokes, like, sure, I'll take that kind of value all day. You're going to get that on a lot of the different players here. Like, and by the way, I know I mentioned at 69.5, like maybe you'd be leaning towards the under. That's why a bump matters. 0.5 bumps matter a whole lot over here in golf. With all that push equity that some of these lines open up. So that's why I think Underdog's a little bit easier to attack, because they bump like crazy. Like they go through this line and they'll move things way faster than they should. Like for example, Ben Griffin's down here at 69.5 strokes. I didn't see that one before, but that makes absolutely no fucking sense. Why do they have him at 69.5 strokes when Cantlay is at 69.5 and he's minus 150 over? Just to give you guys an idea here, right? Ben Griffin, who I actually like at this golf tournament, he's at 70.5 and even money. So if we were going to go over here and try and enter these kind of slips, like I'm going to take the Cantlay one out for now just because he's up there in contention. This is a slip that we can enter. This would be over 3x payout, 3.24x, like you can see right there. And there's value on both sides, right? Ben Griffin's even money at 70.5, so there's a whole stroke discrepancy. And then this Will Zalatoris prop that you guys see there is minus 135 for the under. So I would say a little bit less line value than what you have over there on the Griffin side. But with the anti-correlation, it's how we get over a 3x payout. So I've got to enter the slip myself, so I'm going to do so over there on my phone on my main account. So bear with me while I go ahead and do so. And I still want to find something on Prize Picks, but it's much easier, as you guys can tell, to find value when these sports books are over adjusting to action. And that's not to say that the people out there that are moving these lines are doing things incorrectly, but it's just that if it's not a really good piece of value, right? If it's not a prop that's off by a stroke or two, if it moves in one direction, it's going to become value on the other side. So yeah, the over on Ben Griffin, 69.5, the under on Will Zalatoris, 70.5 strokes. And just to show you why I like the Zalatoris prop, so we'll go back to the round 3 stats. He gained on off the tee, he gained on approach, and then he lost with the putter, which is the kind of stat profile that can lead to some positive regression the next day. And yesterday, despite playing like that, not having his best stuff with the putter, he already shot -3, already would have well covered this kind of line. And the one thing I'll say about Will Zalatoris as well is that we've got some of these tough pin locations. He's got one of the highest ball flights of anyone on the PGA Tour. And with firm greens, he has some of the best numbers of anyone on the PGA Tour. That's why we've seen him have success at Augusta National. Of course, where having that height is an absolute necessity to go out there and finish in the top 5. He's had success at PGA Championships, where you have that very similar firm type of grass. I think it's a good setup out there for Will Zalatoris. So a good slip to go out there and enter. We're over a 3x payout. On the Prize Picks side, though, hey, we might not have a Prize Pick slip if it goes at this rate, but you could take a few of those different, spots that we've already taken and then enter them over here if you want. That's probably going to be it. Yeah, I don't like forcing things in, guys. I guess if I was going to take anything at 4 birdies, worth noting that Keith Mitchell is an extremely aggressive player. So if you're going to take anyone for an over at 4 birdies, it would probably be him of anyone on the board. And the reason I say that is because he was the number 2 birdie maker in all the PGA Tour last year, and they have him essentially at the field average. So that feels like a little bit of a mistake. So maybe you'd lean on that. You go over here and you take like the Harry Higgs over if you guys didn't enter that on Underdog before. That's probably what I'd be looking at over here on the Prize Pick side. The issue is, once again, the payout's lower, right? If you were to take an anti-correlated slip like this, like an over on birdies and an over on strokes, that's 3.24x over there on the Underdog side. On Prize Picks, they're only giving you a 3x payout. So yeah, for the sake of just going after the best line value available, we're going to stick to Underdog over here for the free plays this live stream. But those are 2 plays that I got to. And we didn't even use this Cantlay prop yet, right? This could be another thing that we end up adding on top of it afterwards. So make sure to check out my Patreon page for all the exposure that I'm getting to. Any other slips that I'm entering out there before lock, I'll be posting over there. So if you guys want all the slips I'm entering, not just for today, but for the rest of the PGA Tour schedule, make sure to check out the link in the description of the live stream to go out there and join the Patreon page. And it's only $15 a month. Like, I know you've probably seen Dub Clubs, other people's, premiums, that sort of thing that cost you $50 to $100 a month. I put in more work than almost all these other cappers out there. I can guarantee you that. You're getting research for every single round, stat averages, pin location breakdowns, weather for every single event, and full breakdowns on why I'm taking all my slips. So, I'm not the kind of person that's going to go out there and charge you $100 for losing prop plays. You're going to get winning prop plays over here that long-term have made me limited on Underdog and Prize Picks long-term. I've had to have 3 accounts out there in either site, and I cost way less than all the other people out there. And that's the one thing I'll say about these pick selling services is that the ones that are charging you $100 to $200 a month, the reason why they're doing so is because they lose money on their plays, right? They're charging you an arm and a leg for their plays to fund their plays, right? That's why those people have to do so. I only charge $15 a month for my plays because I make my money off my plays, right? I give them out for a little bit of extra income on top of that, and also to make sure that they don't just bump instantly. The ones I talk about here on live stream videos, that sort of stuff, oftentimes bump like 10, 15 minutes, right? Because you have all these people watching it for free, going out there and entering them. I love to do that. Love to give you guys that kind of value. That's also why I have that premium too, so that the line value can stay up just a little bit longer. So make sure to go ahead, check that out if you guys haven't already. Anything I enter on Prize Picks will be adding over there as well. We did have a DP World Tour slip that we entered last night. That was pretty nice to go out there and hit on Prize Picks. So, hey, if we don't have anything to add over there, at least we hit our one slip that we entered there for today, which a big difference from yesterday. Yesterday on Prize Picks was really shitty, actually. But, hey, having that bounce back today works, right? We hit JT Poston on the Pete Dye course. What about running it again? Yeah, good point. Yes, we did fade him at the Pete Dye Stadium course. The reason why I liked that fade is he was coming off of a -10 round. He did have a really good round yesterday, so he shot -8. I believe it was at the La Quinta course, La Quinta Country Club. He's not the worst play. He's maybe not my favorite over. The only reason I say that for JT Poston is I'm higher on his talent level than most people are on JT Poston. But let me see. So they only have him at 70.5 strokes. What is he on Underdog, I guess? Is the real question, huh? Is that same line? In terms of a sportsbook line, let's see where they have them. They keep taking down these props. I'm not sure what Draftkings is doing over there, but let's see if he's over here on the Fanduel side at least. And they've got all their lines on. I don't know what they're doing this morning. Maybe they're getting a lot of action on some overs. If I had to guess, based on the pin locations, maybe they're getting some over action on these books, which would be a good thing with this kind of sportsbook lines that we've taken so far. It would only make them even better value. If we're going to go through a few matchups now, that's what I'm going to do to go ahead and round off this live stream. Let's get Draftkings to work first. Come on now. I'm on live stream. Let's not waste time here. Almost dropped the coffee again, by the way. I don't know if you guys caught that. The top keeps coming off to this, so I got to be careful over here. All right, so there's the 3 balls. This is what we're going to do over here for today. Let's go over here to matchups as well. Okay, not head-to-head matchups. Let's find the 3 balls. Do they even have them up? I know it's 3 balls. It's not 2 sums over here for Sunday. And we only have 18-hole match bets. Okay, that's bullshit. So we won't use FanDuel then if they're not going to have anything posted. Let's put Caesars over here, and let's find the ones on Caesars. Yeah, there's the 3 balls on Caesars. God, what is FanDuel doing only offering head-to-head matchups? It's 3 sums. Come on now. All right, so going through these, what I usually like to do is I like to find guys that were ball striking it well the day before and try and find them against guys that were maybe struggling the day before. So we're going to look at the round 3 stats. If we looked at all the rounds, it would give us guys that were playing on like Thursday, Friday, which I just don't really give 2 shits about. It's just way too long ago when it comes to that form. The guys I more so care about are the guys that were playing yesterday. And Grazerman gained a bunch of strokes on approach. Now, it's worth noting that 2 of those 4.5 strokes came on 1 shot, where he holed out on hole number 10. If you guys didn't see it, it was a really sweet wedge shot that he hit and then it released, ended up going into the hole. He still gained 2.5 strokes approach, though. So that's still a pretty good day. Charlie Hoffman also had a really good approach round. Maybe the one reason why I didn't like fading him as much, but still went with the fade. You know, he could end up falling back down to earth for sure out there with Charlie Hoffman. But if you're going to find somebody to like go after here, this is why I was looking at Zalatoris and guys like Jason Day, right? They gained strokes out there on approach. So let's see who J Day and who Will Zalatoris are matched against. Because if we can find them in a group that's a little bit weaker, I don't hate it at all. So Will Zalatoris against Taylor Moore and Ben Griffin. So he could potentially be a play that we're getting to there. And let's find the Jason Day prop. So Jason Day's in a group against Straka and Hoffman. He's out there with the leaders. I've got to say that between these 2 props, my favorite probably is the Jason Day one, but let's see what we have for the sportsbook lines. So let me double check over here on DraftKings. I guess if you type in day, it's just going to bring the 2-day up. So it's Jason Day is plus 140. And then who's the other one? Will Zalatoris. God, you can tell it's early in the morning because I didn't remember that. So he's plus 140 out there in either site for either spot. I think I like the Jason Day one just a little bit more because Sepp Straka's got the 4-shot lead. He's going to be playing a little bit conservative. Charlie Hoffman, I hate to say it, a little bit washed up at this point of his career. Like I'm totally fine going against him. Reason why I like that one a little bit more is because Ben Griffin, I know we faded him at 69.5 strokes, but he's not all that bad. Like he's plus 165 here for a reason. Taylor Moore, I'm not as worried about. So I think I'm going to bet both of these. Let me see what I have over here on Hard Rock Bet in terms of like an actual line available. But if it's anywhere competitive to what we have here at plus 140, I'll probably shoot on these two out here for Sunday. I want guys that struck the ball well yesterday. I want guys that have the high ball flight. We already talked about Zalatoris having the high ball flight, taking on these major championship courses. Jason Day is the same thing, right? Jason Day has one of the highest ball flights in golf history. So that's another reason to go after these two. And if we're going to find the matchups, they do have the 3 balls posted now. Okay, good. Now let me find these two specifically. So the Jason Day one is plus 160. Oh my God. So Jason Day over here on Hard Rock Bet is plus 160 against those other two. He's actually slightly behind Straka when it comes to the odds. I do not agree with that at all. So that is for sure going to be a bet. And then Will Zalatoris, same thing, by the way, guys. He's plus 160 over here for Sunday. So these odds over here on Fanduel, Draftkings, Caesars, they're even better over there on the Hard Rock Bet side, which honestly isn't something that we usually say. A lot of times the odds are worse over here in Hard Rock Bet just because it's a little bit of a monopoly that they have down here in Florida. But hey, if you're going to give me a better line, then I'll oblige. Sure, I'll go out there and enter a few slips. So 1 second here, guys. I'm actually depositing some money on my Hard Rock Bet right now. I used the rest of my account balance on my stuff for the outright card this week, which, by the way, I got a few horses out there in the outright card this week. So might not need to add more money for next week. Let's put it that way. If Sepp Straka or Cantlay is able to go out there and win. But the Jason Day and also this Will Zalatoris at plus 160 is going to be a 1 unit bet apiece. So 1 unit to return a little bit over a unit. Oh, actually, almost 1.6 units. Let's go ahead and fire on that. All right. So that's going to be it for the 3 balls over here from round number 4. Pretty simple, actually. We found a few props on Hard Rock Bet that were even better value than what we had over here on these other few sites. And it's 2 ball strikers going up against guys that, you know, in the case of Straka, dealing with a little bit of pressure. Down here at the bottom, dealing with a little bit of bad form. So I really like what we're doing there. Alrighty, guys. That's all I've got for this live stream. I'm sick, as you guys can tell, so I tried to battle through it as much as I could, but was able to get through all the info that we needed out there for Sunday before finally wearing down to my bits end. So hopefully we can end this week with a bang out here on Sunday, whether it's with our prop exposure or over there with some potential outrights. Hopefully Straka, Cantlay can go out there and get into contention, and we can end this week out there into the green. Best of luck out there with all of your exposure, whether it's in DFS, showdown, bets, the props that we talked about here, and let's get it out there for next week at the Farmers Insurance Open.